Welcome to another episode of Spiral Theory, understanding the body through the forces of nature. I'm your host, Shila LaGrue. Let's start discovering. Welcome to our first podcast of our Spiral Theory series. I'm Shila, the host, and this is Heidi.
Hello.
And we're going to talk today about Pilates. Heidi and I met many years ago in New York.
Yeah.
At a Pilates studio.
Yeah.
The Kane School Pilates studio. And that's the studio who we are now an offsite training center for. And we're here to talk to you a little bit about how Pilates has impacted our lives, how we've seen it impact other people's lives, and just little tidbits about Pilates. So, anything you want to say before I start?
No, I mean, I think it's just such a full circle moment. When I moved down to Florida, I was a little bit lost here, and I found you because dancers talk about who to go to for rehab, and you were the first thing that came up. I was having a foot thing, and I came in, and I was like, oh my gosh, Sheila.
And I was like, oh my God, how do I know you? We knew that. It was
Right. Yeah, and the fact that we met at Connected the Kane School in New York when Sheila was doing her training and I was working the front desk, to coming back here, and now I teach at your studio and we run the Kane School Pilates program together is just such a cool, it's so cool.
Yeah, we have history.
Yeah, I love it. It's pretty great.
So, as a dancer, I'm just curious, how has Pilates impacted your life as a dancer?
I feel like the first thing that pops into my head is longevity because, well, first of all, knowledge and longevity. So Pilates gave me so much information, has given me so much information about my body over the last, 20 years. I first took a Pilates class in college, and it was fine, but, in college you're doing so many things that not everything registers in the way that it's going to later in life. And then when I moved to New York when I was 25 and I started working at Connected, and I would take Pilates, I got to take Pilates classes for free. And that was at a time where I was really pursuing dance, with all of my being. And I just started to get so much information about my body and all this knowledge of all of a sudden my anatomy and like what my hips do when I do this, and maybe what they should be doing or what they shouldn't be doing. And just like slowly, like how you hit the first layer and then you go deeper and you go deeper. Just getting able to take Pilates classes every week while I was, just throwing my body into all these crazy dance situations because, when we're young, we do anything and everything. I think it was really helpful. And then as I started to get older and, just life and bodies breaking down, yes, it gave me the tools to then be able to address things as they came up. Still would freak out about injuries and pain, but at least, I would have people to talk with, have people to give me more information. And then with that, I could go forward and be like, okay, maybe if I try this, or maybe if I don't do these things when I'm doing this in ballet class, I won't feel this pain.
I love that you're mentioning the tools on how to help yourself, because that's one of the main goals I have here at Body Center for my clients, is that they start to gain these tools. They don't think if I have trigger point pain or hip pain that it's a surgery. They don't jump to that right away. Right. It's like, maybe I can take a pinky ball, rub out a trigger point and do a clam exercise, and then, those tools are so valuable. Yeah. It could be a matter of surgery or not.
Yeah. And I think dance and Pilates have fed each other over the years now, where as a dancer, I'm able to approach doing Pilates and teaching Pilates from a different lens and sometimes in a deeper way. And then vice versa, that when I'm warming, the way I craft my warm-ups, especially when I'm teaching, there's always elements of Pilates in there. And then for my own personal warm-up, I know exactly what I need to do on what side, if it's just a basic warm-up or if I'm dealing with this injury or that injury. I'm doing how that shoulder thing right now. And so I'm like, okay, I need to be doing my little external rotation, stuff.
Yeah, so
yeah, I just feel like now they feed each other in this really like healthy way. What do they call it in nature? Are they the things feed off of each other?
What's that word I'm looking for? I don't know. Co-something. Anyway.
Cohabitat. I don't know.
That I know. Anyway, they
So-
feed each other.
What got you to the point of being a dancer who takes Pilates to someone that's actually interested in taking the training and wanting to teach Pilates? Like, what was the trigger in your mind that's like, actually, I want to teach this? I mean, I know mine, a lot of it was financial too. Like, it's like I need another job besides dancing.
Yeah.
But what was it for you?
Wildly enough, it was COVID. So I worked at Connected for many years, and I had plenty of opportunities where I could have taken the training. You know, I could have taken it on my own time and kind of like, I know they would have been really flexible because I worked there almost full time, and so it would have been tough. But I just felt like it felt like too much, and then I just kept seeing teachers that got burnt out. Like all my friends who were teachers in New York, especially who were dancers, got burnt out. They're running over seeing this person at 6 a.m. and then teaching and then going to rehearsal and then teaching until 9 p.m. at night. And they ended up not liking it. And I was like, well, why would I go? I know I wanted to do the training for the information for myself, but I couldn't justify financially doing that. So I was like, why would I go through all the time and effort to do this if I'm not gonna love teaching or if I'm gonna burn out? I just didn't feel like the right fit to teach in New York while I lived there.
I can totally relate. Because, and I want you to continue your thought, but also as a yoga teacher, I had gone from many years of being a yoga teacher to now I'm back to being a yoga student because I don't teach yoga anymore, and I'm so much enjoying being in the student
part of
hat,
it.
not the teacher hat. So I can totally relate to that.
Yeah.
So you were like honoring. Like, I just want to be a happy Pilates mover. I don't want to necessarily get into that burnout that I see a lot of people go through.
And I didn't feel also like I didn't feel this huge desire to be a teacher. And I moved to LA, and I remember I had friends who were like, wait, you don't want to teach? Like, it didn't make any sense to them. And I was like, no, I want, when I'm in the dance world, I want to be doing the thing. And when I'm not, I'm really okay doing something that honestly easier on my body, easier on my energy. Like, so I had my other jobs that were not related, and that worked out really well for me. And even when I was still curious about the training at that point, or just getting certified to teach Pilates, I knew I only wanted to do the Kane training. And then I was all the way out in LA. And so I was like, well, no, I'm too far. And so I was like, maybe that shift's just passed. Like, that's okay. I wasn't dying to become a Pilates instructor. So I was like, you know, it all works out how it's supposed to work out. Moved to Florida. A couple years later, COVID hits, and all of a sudden Connected is like, we're doing virtual certification. And the co-director of the program, Matt, was like, so do you want to do it now? And I was like, I even then I was kind of like, oh, I don't know. And then I remember I talked with you, I don't remember, but I called you because I remember how you done the training. I knew how much you loved it. And you were, I mean, I don't remember exactly what you said, but you were like, I don't think you're going to regret it. And then the other thing you said where you were like, use me. You were like use the studio, like come in, like run stuff by me. Like you were basically freely offering to be my mentor in this way where I was like,
Well, if I could do it with Shila, then maybe I could do it.
Because gives me the good feelings.
Because I also felt like alone and far away. You know, like part of the great thing about the Kane training is a community built from it. So I was like, well, doing it virtually doesn't scare me, but doing it by myself seems like that would kind of suck.
Right.
And I felt like I wasn't alone.
You had support here, you had support in New York.
Yeah.
So I think this is a good time to talk about what the difference is between Kane Pilates versus all the other styles of Pilates out there. And what are different styles of Pilates anyways? Like what did Joseph Pilates, what was his vision and where are we now? Like what's happening in the Pilates world?
I mean, I don't know if I'm the best one to speak on this because I
have not been out in the Pilates world very much here or elsewhere. Even when I lived in LA, I was primarily taking yoga classes. And so I haven't really taken a lot of Pilates outside of Kane classes, virtually and in person. So just to preface with that. But what I understand is that there's like the classical Pilates. So from Joseph himself, like trying to keep that sequence of the classical exercises in a certain order. And so that's one class or one kind of vein. And then, I mean, there's probably 50,000 other types of classes, but then you kind of get into the fitness realm where you have people on mics and lots of bodies on reformers, or even mat classes where it's just more of a workout-based class. So those are the two that come to mind. And the thing I love about the Kane School approach is that, first of all, I think it's really wonderful for every body. It can be applicable for every body. You can get a quote-unquote workout, like you will work your body and your muscles in a way that hopefully doesn't leave you in pain, aggravating like injuries or like normal pain patterns after you've left the class. So I feel like it's very, it can be tailored to a lot of different bodies and a lot of different classes. Like the thing I love about the training, especially the people who've come through and done the training, is very adaptable. So you can take it and you can use it as a part of your PT practice or part of your massage practice. We have dancers here in St. Pete who've gone and they teach a Pilates class, but I'm sure it's a total, like,
Even as part of their warm-up in a dance class.
Exactly. So I think I love that about the training in general, but what sets it apart from other types of Pilates classes, I feel is like the care and the attention to detail that goes into all of the exercises, that everything can be modified so that you can do it for your body and your needs. And the teacher that's teaching that class is watching you and wants you to feel good, wants you to work and understand like the connections that you're making, especially mind body connection, but cares about how you're feeling and how you're doing in terms of like, no pain, no injury.
Right. And so let me go a little bit further on that from my experience.
Want you to feel good is what you're saying. But the way I view Kane Pilates, different from other Pilates methods, is the attention to biomechanics. So correct function. And that's what makes you leave feeling good. Because you can feel good from any other type of workout, just from the endorphin rush and engaging muscles. But then later, when you cool down and the next day when you wake up and you're sore completely in different places, asymmetrically, things feel like slightly injured, after a hard workout, that's not the goal of Pilates. We do not want to kill it, no pain, no gain. That is like absolutely not where we head with Kane. We are more about biomechanics and functional movement. And I always looked at it as a way to learn proper movement mechanics and then impart that to other people. So I never really wanted to teach Pilates to know about the Pilates or to teach the Pilates method per se.
Right. Let me know how to teach teaser.
Right. It was all about, for me, functional movement for myself, but also I was already a yoga teacher and I didn't know how to teach core. That was my first desire to get out and learn Pilates. It's like, okay, a lot of yoga teachers teach core work in their yoga class, but there are so many different ways. Do you curve? Do you stay neutral? How do you do all these things properly? I started inquiring around in New York, and everyone was saying, that's what brought me to Kane. Everyone was saying, go Kelly Kane, Kelly Kane, Kelly Kane. I heard her name so many times. I was like, let me meet this woman. And I was so lucky to be, she's teaching again, but I was so lucky at that time to be the last class that she taught as the owner of the Kane School, because it has since changed hands, but she's still very much involved. But so I was the last class that she taught. So I really got that last bit of her juice as a kind of the mama of the studio, and that was amazing. But Pilates and as a fitness kind of modality, ironically I took Pilates at Power Pilates while I was doing the Kane training, so I could see the dichotomy. I wanted to know the difference. So Power Pilates is one of the most conventional fitness Pilates franchises in New York City, maybe around more than just New York, I'm not sure, but I felt like I needed it, so I knew more about the vocabulary and kind of the classical version, the language, because in a typical Kane School Pilates class, at least what I was getting exposed to, it was all movement exploration. It almost didn't even seem like a Pilates class. It's like, let's start with a massage. Let's mobilize this joint. And then you see like 1 or 2 exercises peppered in. But beforehand you have let's warm up to it. Let's understand this joint. Let's then do the exercise. And then we have other exercises that will support what we're learning.
Yeah.
It was just so educational and not necessarily the classical version. So I wanted to know both, like what I was learning off track of the classical version, and I was very much more interested in that, but I also wanted to know where they were branching from. So I did that side by side, which is something I also did with dance, because I went to Juilliard and it was very classical. And every summer, for a couple summers, I actually did the NYU summer programs because I wanted to do the granola downtown dance scene as well. So it's kind of typical of my personality. I want to kind of see equally almost at the same time, the different approaches that are out there.
Like learning by contrast too. You're
Learning
like,
by
what is
contrast.
this? What is it? And what is it not? Right? Which is really helpful.
Yeah, and that takes me to another question. So I want to know a little bit more about these. We have core principles in our Pilates training, and I've always thought that the core principles are the most important thing in Pilates, whether you're on a piece of equipment or not. And those core principles have carried me through everything I do with therapy now. So I'm still doing core principles with all of my clients.
You should say a little bit about the therapy, what you do.
Oh, okay. So
structural therapy.
for those of you that don't know,
Just so you know.
I'm what's called a neurosomatic therapist. We shorten the term here and we call it structural therapy. And we offer at Body Center St. Pete, our center here, we offer structural therapy and Pilates. So my vision was to be an alternative type of therapy similar to physical therapy, where you get the hands-on and you get the movement, but it's so focused. We have a lot of time with one person, as opposed to typically in physical therapy, you might have 15 minutes with your physical therapist, but you're there for an hour. And so then she's jumping around, and he or she jumping around saying, okay, do this exercise. And then they'll go to another patient, and then you don't get the full attention. Likewise, physical therapy tends to not spend as much time manually. And I think that's super important. So I just wanted to create a center where we could really focus on all the needs of the individual, one-on-one, get that manual therapy, get the release so you can have better function, and then educate the person so they can leave, learn how to move better, and hopefully not come back. It's not usually a business model where you don't want people to come back, but if people aren't coming back, that means they're feeling better, or they weren't jiving with the work. But I want it to be more like they're feeling better and they don't have to come back. So as a therapist, I felt like, because now that's mostly what I do primarily, I felt like the core principles and the pre-Pilates exercises are where it's at. It's like the meat and potatoes. I don't feel like the fancy choreography, the fancy equipment. I mean, we could use balls and bands as opposed to the equipment. I feel like you can do everything in the core. The core principles and the pre-Pilates stuff, which Kane spends so much time, as an introduction to the work. It's really more about that for me than it is, the exercises in a row. The way Pilates Joseph Pilates himself set that out. So
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think the core principles are incredible. I think they help me organize in my own body. Even just because, some examples of the core principles, like breathing is one, pelvic position is one, scapular position is one, pelvic stability is one, hip differentiation, scapulohumeral rhythm. So they kind of hit different areas of the body. So they're principles that in this area of the body, this is what we're going for you to get the most functional movement, most pain-free movement. But the thing that I love about it is it's slightly different for every body. Like there's this overarching concept of okay, scapular position, it should be, this is how we measure scapular position. And yet, we don't have to dive into this, but you just went to an incredible dissection. You've seen a ton of bodies over your career, and then you've also done several dissections. And so you know that that's not every body, technically. And so it just gives you like this map, this guideline of like, this is what I'm going for. But if I have this curve to my spine or this injury in my hip, like I know that, you know, we're not going for like perfection. So I just think the core principles help me organize in my own body. Like, oh, okay, this shoulder is really hurting me. Okay, so what is my scapulohumeral rhythm was like? When I raise my arm, what's my arm doing in relationship to my shoulder and my shoulder blade? So that's just a really easy way that when I'm looking at myself or another body, it helps me organize and make a plan. And then I agree with you that it's like the real juice of the program. So the mat is like 2.5 weekends, the certification, and the whole first weekend is on these core principles. Kind of carrying over anatomy from the first 2 weekends of the prereq. So we're like reviewing anatomy, but then we're now feeding it into, okay, so this is the anatomy of the inner unit, and now this is how we're using the inner unit to find pelvic stability and breath and all these core principles. But then what I also love about the second weekend, which is all the exercises and the choreography, which is not sometimes people's favorite because they get really into the core principles, is then it helps you organize the core principles into movement. It just gives you these like guideposts of like, oh, like I want to work on my hip differentiation. Oh, so I'll go to knee folds or toe taps, right? And so now I have these pre-Pilates exercises or choreography, like actual other exercises.
Like circle or something.
Yeah, that I can now explore for myself. Is my leg moving and my pelvis not moving? Is my pelvis moving and my leg not moving? It's just kind of simple ways to ask yourself questions in the choreography. So yeah, I love the core principles.
It's the way to
make these principles applicable, but at the same time, it can actually help as teachers. It can help you plan a class even. You might say one of the core principles is the cervical like knot and curl, right? Yeah. So we want to have freedom of our neck, and you can literally build an entire class around that. Yeah. And how many people that take Pilates, their number one complaint is all I feel is the front of my neck, because you're lifting up in a sit-up position half the class. Yeah. So I think it's a fascinating way to get really kind of geeky about biomechanics. That's definitely what I like to nerd out on. So yeah. I love the core principles, and that's literally the best part of the training for me. I did the entire mat and equipment training. I spent a year practicing all the equipment stuff, getting my hours in. Yeah. My favorite was that first weekend. It was by far my favorite, where we learned these kind of these principles that it carries on to everyday life. Yeah. Like, and hearing Kelly Kane talk about it, she talks about when she decided she wanted to get into biomechanics herself, she was watching, I think, her grandfather fix something, and he was always like reaching with his whole body and everything hurt, and she was thinking it doesn't have to be that way. Yeah, that was kind of her story. Yeah. And you know, my story is the same, especially when I have the center and these clients that are in a lot of pain. Like just a couple little pointers of these like basic principles of movement in everyday life can completely change, you know, a chronic condition or pain or injury and get you out of it. So I love that part of it.
We had I'm blanking on her name. I'm sorry that I forgot your name. But one of our students in last year's training was training swimmers.
Okay. Oh yeah. Jennifer. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, Jennifer. She was training swimmers like younger ages, right? Like it was middle school and high school or something. And she's like a massage therapist, right? She's also a structural therapist.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So she has tons of tools and knowledge. But after that first weekend, there was like a tournament or a meet, and she was having them do, I think it was just pelvic clocks, which is like a hip differentiation and pelvic position. Core principles.
It's like a mobilization.
Exercises.
Yeah. But we're talking about core principles. I would say like those are the two that we're kind of like talking about, pelvic position and pelvic stability. And she was just like the amount of difference that it made just doing this one thing with their attention on this basically like one or two things made such a difference. in like one weekend. So it's just the simplicity of it is so nice. I mean, it is very complex. I don't want to ignore that, because you are feeding in a lot of anatomy knowledge. You're having to really watch with your eyes and see what's going on. But the concepts themselves are like pretty simple.
Yeah. And it's kind of a safe space if you take a Pilates class, especially one that's a little more, not so much the group fitness Pilates, but a little more in our style, the Kane style, a little more investigative.
Yeah.
It's a safe space to bring conscious awareness to movement patterns that you really can't correct while you're doing those movement patterns. Take gait, for example. So it's like, gait is subconscious, posture is subconscious. So it's really difficult to correct those things consciously. There's too many bytes of information in our conscious brain to be able to think about 10 things at once.
Right.
So we're in our movement class, in our Pilates class, and that's where we work on honing in on one area and putting our conscious effort into that one area with very simple movements.
Yeah.
Then it translates into everyday life. So then you do not have to think about correcting your gait. It is corrected from the class you took.
Yeah.
That's what I use with my clients, and that's what I think is so valuable about the Kane School, specifically the Kane style of Pilates. Is it just brings functional movement biomechanics into everyday life.
Yeah.
So your joints aren't like angry joints.
Yeah.
I tell my clients all the time that, because we impart a lot of information to them in any given hour that we're with them, and a lot of them do get stressed about like, well, I don't know if I can remember this or do this outside of this room. I'm like, you don't have to worry about that. That's why we're spending so much time and effort and like brain energy
on it right now.
I'm so glad you tell them that.
Work out.
I get that all the time. If I'm sharing information with my clients, they want to, it's like they're not going to be 100% present because they want to take pictures and take notes. And it's like, let's do it like now. It'll be in you. And then we can take some notes later, but let's be really present and do it now, because in all honesty, they're all going to take the notes, and how much are they really going to do it at home?
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, the value of one-on-one Pilates or really any type of movement. I feel like one-on-one is so valuable because you have eyeballs on the body to give you feedback, where if there is not a mirror or not proprioception, a sense of where you are in space, those outside eyes can keep you like kind of boundaries, can keep you on grid so you don't fall off into your patterns. Yeah. I just feel like that's so important.
Yeah. I mean, we both love that. Like, as like we dying to take sessions
from each other, trading. Oh, we love it.
Because we're like, I just want someone else's eyes on me.
And don't do it enough.
Us, we're not exactly sure where our body is in space all the time. And we love for someone to watch us do something and talk to us about what's going on.
Because the body's perception of what's happening is always really different than what's actually happening.
And you don't really get that in a group class. You don't really get that. Teachers in group classes do amazing things. They have an amazing attention span, but it's really difficult to get to every person's needs. Yeah. So that's why I really dig the model. That's actually turning into not as common now with all the bigger franchises and Club Pilates and the big, but there were plenty of photographs, historical photographs of Joseph Pilates in a group class setting, but I think primarily the one-on-one was where he was really exploring and helping lots of famous people in other realms, like Martha Graham, and like the connections with Joseph Pilates and the original students. It's really cool. So why would I choose Pilates over weight training? Because we like Pilates for the load, for the feedback, for the one-on-one. Like, why would it be a nice choice as opposed to one-on-one with the personal trainer? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I personally wouldn't, because I would choose both, because I personally love weight training. And I'm not talking about like some crazy barbell over my head thing. I'm even just talking about free weights, like really intentional, slow, like muscle building programs. But I think I actually have at least 2 people right now that I'm seeing that I know do pretty extensive weight training, but they're injured. And so I love to be somebody who can just give them as much information as I can about what I'm seeing in their body and help them come out of the pattern that is causing them pain while they're lifting weights. And fortunately now I know enough about weightlifting that I can usually also pinpoint, like, maybe when you're doing this particular exercise, can we try doing it like this? Or can we not do that exercise for a few weeks so this can calm down and we can then get you back in a better place? So I think Pilates and weight training are an incredible, like, complementary.
I love that.
I don't think they should ever work against one another. I think if it depends on what your goals are, right? But I think that Pilates will always, always serve any other thing that you are doing
100%.
With what we've just said.
past however many minutes we've been doing this, because it's giving you information, anatomical information about how your body is working. You're getting the information about biomechanics that your body needs to do things that help you do them in a pain-free way.
Yeah.
So that just
That's
carries
a
over.
great answer. I'll just like piggyback on that. Because like I mentioned before, I was originally a yoga teacher as a supplement to my dance income. So from a yoga teaching perspective, I wanted to learn more about how to teach core. So I got into Pilates. After I did my Pilates training, I realized, oh my gosh, this is helping me be a better yoga teacher, a better dancer, a better person. I can reach for something. If I'm in a difficult, like, say, strength position in life, I'm like helping someone move furniture. I know how to hold myself so I don't make my back go out if I'm doing something I'm not used to doing.
Yeah.
It's just like so relevant across the board.
Yeah.
And I have to say, like, choosing maybe isn't
Yeah.
the answer. It's like, let's be well-rounded. Let's get it from all angles. But I really do believe that the Kane style Pilates and the way it's taught can be kind of the background intelligence in the body for everything you do. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like for any, I mean, I shouldn't really be doling out life advice. But like, if something is not working for you, it's not working for you. Like, even if you're doing Pilates every day and you're in pain, like, maybe you should not do it every day, or do different kind of
Pilates.
Or go out of a group class and into a one-on-one to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, so I think if something is causing you pain, you need to listen to
Or if your
that.
pain's not quieting down, it's definitely time to investigate.
Yeah, and
If
maybe
you're
coming in for some structural therapy to see, like, get all your measurements and see what's going on in your spine and in your pelvis, and just.
I have to say, if you're in pain, you really have to stop and question, what am I doing every day? Like, like, let's be logical here. Nothing happens in a vacuum. Like, there's a cause and effect.
Yeah.
It could be from a long time ago, but let's break this down.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are kind of grinning and bearing it. They're in a lot of pain and they have not changed what they're doing. And all it takes is an observation, a recognition, and a change. And then it can actually go away. You know, your pain, your injuries, they can heal. Our bodies are amazing.
And I have to just do a big plug for, like, Shila and structural therapy and all the structural therapists here. It's like they do such an amazing job. When you come in, you get totally charted, you get measured. And so they see exactly, like, the angles of your bones and your spine to see what patterns are in your body that could be causing you pain. And they ask so many questions. Like, they don't just stop at, like, oh, how are you feeling? Or, oh, what's your injury? You keep asking questions so you can get back to that one time 6 years ago when you did reach for that one thing and then this thing happened in your shoulder, like, whatever it is. And then you're like, aha, now I see the picture. And they're really holistically, like, looking at your whole life and your body to try to figure out, exactly, doesn't happen in a vacuum. So what is going on so we can, like, peel back these layers and get you out of pain.
And just how Heidi mentioned, the structural therapist doing that in maybe a static posture, maybe a gait analysis, which is movement. But the Kane style Pilates does teach you how to have that kind of vision. They teach you how to have some measurements as well, and some movement, kind of like an X-ray vision while you're moving. So we are taught to kind of recognize faulty movement patterns. So through movement, through static posture measurements, all together combined, we're just hoping for healthier bodies. We want people to be happy in their bodies. I mean, that's really my goal here at Body Center, just to be happy in your body.
Yeah, I want people to not be mad at their bodies also. Like, so many people come in and like, oh, that's my bad butt, or oh, like my stupid shoulder. And I'm like,
This body's taking you from place to place for your whole life. You have to love it.
like, no. So sometimes I just ask people, I was like, so maybe just think about it as the less organized side.
Yeah, not
The bad side or the side you hate.
because words matter.
Words matter.
So I think it's a good time to maybe just mention our training coming up in a couple weeks.
We have, we're offering the first 2 steps of the training. So we're offering core muscle anatomy, which is the prerequisite that Shila teaches. She's such an amazing anatomy teacher. She's an amazing Pilates teacher, but I love coming to, I at least drop in on some of the anatomy every time because I always need more anatomy. And Sheila's such a great teacher. She has so many different layers of knowledge from so many places and trainings and certifications. So it's really, really cool. So that's 2 weekends. And let me know when that's February 22nd, 23rd, and March 8 and 9. So it's 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. So it's like 24 hours total. And you get a pretty deep dive into anatomy. A lot of focus on muscles and bones, and a good focus on the inner unit, which we can dive into in a second here, your core. And then I am teaching the comprehensive mat, which is step 2, which is the Pilates mat certification. So the first weekend is all core principles and pre-Pilates exercises. And then the second weekend is all the rest of the choreography. So it's a lot of the classical Joseph Pilates choreography. So we have beginner, intermediate, and advanced exercises. We go through all of them. We talk through all the core principles. We revisit anatomy. And then the third weekend is just a 3-hour movement lab. So we do, I teach a class, and then we do a couple hours of what we call supervised teaching. So I am around as you practice teaching on your fellow students, just like mini mat classes or a few exercises, just so people who haven't taught before can start to get their voice, their teaching voice, practice just saying words and cueing. And people who have taught before are just now beating in the language of what they've been learning. So yeah, it's 4.5 weekends. The comprehensive mat is March 22nd, 23rd, April 5th and 6th, and April 26th.
And I'm so honored to teach this work. I mean, it's really like everything I got from Kelly herself and the entire Kane School, now connected, and now with Matt as well, all the gifts of continuing this legacy on. I just feel so honored to be an offsite training center for this work. It's here in St. Pete. I know if I was a young person before I went to New York, but knew all the things about New York, I would have been like, because this work is really sought after. With a lot of dancers and a lot of movement professionals in New York City, and we're offering it here in St. Pete with people that have been around the stuff for a long time. I mean, both of us have been. It's like we can put decades in our pocket now that we've been around it for a long time.
I got to take class with Kelly every week for years.
Yeah,
and
it's just magical. She's beyond just a teacher. She's and she comes from a very rich background as well. Hands-on, PT, like all kinds of mentors in her life have shaped her teaching, and she's also an anatomy geek. So we just love spending time with Kelly.
Yeah, and I have to shout out to Kwan Hui-Chu, who is an incredible teacher at Connected. I took her class for many, many years. Her voice and her teaching is embedded in my teaching. And Stephanie Bittner, who is like one of our favorite. She allows people
for what would you call them, master classes once a year. So you can look out for her.
And so I just have to
also shout out those two people as mentors that have really informed who I am as a mover in Pilates and a teacher.
So since you mentioned the inner unit, we'll just end with this. Okay. So when I, it was actually mind blowing to me that your real core is not your six pack. Mind blowing. So this is one of the basic core principles of the whole work is how to organize this cylinder.
Yeah.
And the real core, I mean, like really, the real true core, and this is all researched by various avenues, various like movement research professionals. I mean, this is highly researched. So this isn't just we're saying it.
Yeah.
But the true core is your diaphragm, your pelvic floor, your transverse abdominis, and your multifidus. It's not your six pack like everyone tends to think. And even if you look up inner unit exercises online, they are actually not accurate at all. A lot of them are putting you out of neutral. And the whole point of inner unit activation is you're actually maintaining neutral. So I love that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things that was incredible to me about learning about the inner unit is how much our breath has to do with our core. Like that literally when we inhale, our diaphragm, like this huge muscle, like one of our main muscles of respiration is contracting. And it's just incredible the relationship between the diaphragm and the pelvic floor and the whole inner unit. And anyway, yeah, that was my mind-blowing thing was when I started learning about how breath and the use of the diaphragm impacts your inner unit. I was like,
who'd have thought?
Little baby student. I was like, this is incredible.
It's so, yeah, if you're
All I have to
interested,
do is breathe.
I know. If you're interested in really bringing your awareness deep into your body and feeling where movement literally comes from, it's working with this way, this very kind of mindful way, and we do it here, and we'd love to see you around. And if you're interested, just keep being interested and keep exploring. There's a lot of resources all over the place, and we just want people, like we said, to feel good in their bodies. So
And breathe.
and breathe and breathe. So with that, I think we'll sign off.
Cool.
Thank you, Heidi,
Thanks,
for
Shila.
chatting about all this great stuff that we love
I
together.
love chatting with you.
Yay. All right. Thanks, y'all.